I'm back to the original question to the Leader of the Opposition. Is he serious about passing this, even if it's not the perfect bill for him?
We're the only party that has been serious for the last 8 years about this. That member, along with the NDP, has voted to release repeat violent criminals into his community. He has helped unleash a crime wave on Vancouver Island. Both NDP and Liberal have brought about tent cities, chaos, drug overdoses, and his only solution has been to ban the hunting rifles of the decent, hardworking, law-abiding people who live on Vancouver Island.
Pierre calls out NDP and Bloc hypocrisy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And thank you to the House. After 8 years under this Prime Minister, the cost of living is going up because of an inflationist tax supported by the Bloc Quebecois, it's radically gone up, and because of inflationist deficits. Work no longer pays. The cost of housing has doubled. And the desperation caused by these policies has caused a crisis of homelessness, drug use, and crime. And that is the record after 8 years under this Prime Minister. Today, we are rising in the House of Commons to discuss the total chaos caused by this Prime Minister in our streets with his changes to bail. He passed Bill C-75, which allows the same criminals who have already been found guilty dozens of times to be freed on bail the same day that they are arrested. This bill was supported by the Bloc Quebecois. So it shows that there's a cost to voting for the Bloc Quebecois. A vote for the Bloc is a vote for Liberal policies that cause crime in our streets. And what are the consequences of this Liberal Bloc policy? Well, after 8 years under this Prime Minister, violent crime has gone up by 39%. Murders are up by 43%. Gang murders are up by 108%. Firearms offences are up by 101%. And I'll stop there for a moment, because the Prime Minister thinks that fighting crime linked to firearms means that you need to ban hunting rifles. He said it in his own words, that he wanted to take firearms that are used for hunting out of the hands of hunters. In Bill C-21, he proposed doing just that, and he added 300 pages of hunting rifles that he wants to ban. The Bloc Quebecois was so happy. They were ecstatic. They said that they wanted to pass that full list and that they'd been waiting for it for years and years and years to see all those hunting rifles banned. Now, the Bloc Quebecois and its leader is trying to pivot and trying to make people in Quebec's regions forget that they were forget what the Bloc did. The Bloc also voted in favor of a law which allows criminals who use firearms for violent offences to be released on bail the same day that they're arrested. So this approach has not worked. We, the Conservative Party, we are going to protect hunters' rights, and we are going to put the true criminals in prison, and we're going to put resources at the border to prevent illegal firearms from coming into the country.
On voit aussi.
We also see that assault is up by 61%. Sexual offences against children are up by 126% after 8 years under this Prime Minister. Auto theft is up by 34% after 8 years under this Prime Minister. That is the record of their approach to freeing the most violent criminals while banning hunting rifles. It doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. And that is why the Conservative Party is the only party in the House of Commons which has the good common sense to oppose these measures and to defend the rights of hunters. We are going to put criminals behind bars, and we are going to protect people who respect our laws. And we know that the Conservative approach is working because when we were in power, crime rates dropped by 26%. Why? Because we targeted the most violent, the meanest criminals. Reoffenders were sent to prison. And all the other parties said that this was going to cause a huge increase in the prison population. But in fact, the number of prisoners dropped by 4.3%. There were fewer people in prison, and there was less crime on our streets. And at the same time, we were able to eliminate the gun registry to protect our hunters. Our approach worked. Why? Because if we target the most violent criminals and we prevent them from being released on bail to recommit the same crimes, we can protect society. And we can discourage crime at the same time. That approach, based on good common sense, is the approach that we're going to follow when I'll be Prime Minister of Canada. Today before us, we have a bill. Yes, thank you.
Bill that partly reverses the damage that this Prime Minister has caused. We all know that after 8 years of this Prime Minister, life costs more, work doesn't pay, housing costs have doubled, and crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder are common in our streets. We know that his policy of freeing repeat violent offenders the same day they are arrested came to us in Bill C-75, supported by both Liberals and their coalition partners. In fact, the NDP wanted to go even further. What are the consequences of their catch and release policy? Violent crime is up 39%, homicides up 43%, gang killings up 108%, aggravated assaults up 24%, assault with a weapon causing bodily harm, 61% increase. Sexual assaults up 71%, sex crimes against kids up 126%, kidnappings up 36%, car thefts up 34%. And these crimes are almost always committed by a very small minority. The good news is that we don't have a lot of criminals in Canada. The bad news is they're very productive. And they're allowed to be productive because of the catch and release policies passed in Bill C-75 that allow an offender to be arrested often within hours of his latest crime. Now, in Vancouver, the police had to arrest the same 40 offenders 6,000 times because the police were and the system was required to release them under this Prime Minister's Bill C-75. The bill before us today partly and modestly reverses the catch and release bail system that this Prime Minister created, but does not go far enough. Our policy is very clear. A Conservative government, a common sense Conservative government led by me, will bring in jail and not bail for repeat violent offenders. Those offenders with a long rap sheet, newly arrested, will be ineligible for bail. Now, when we brought in policies of this sort under the previous Conservative government, and we not only reduced crime by 25%, we actually reduced incarceration rates. Now, this was against all of the rhetoric of the radical left, who said that we'd have to build mega prisons to accommodate all the criminals. In fact, our laws were narrowly targeted at the worst repeat offenders, and they scared the rest of the criminals away. So you actually had fewer criminals, less crime, and therefore fewer prisoners. And that meant safer streets. But this Prime Minister has unleashed a crime wave over the last several years. I just was in Whitehorse yesterday, where at Antoinette's restaurant, where the owner told me his restaurant has been robbed 12 times in 18 months, multiple times by the same offender who is released again and again. In fact, the police told him they were going to stop arresting the offender because it wasn't worth the time of having him arraigned and being released almost immediately. It was easier and more cost-effective to just leave the thief on the streets and let him do his business. That is how broken our criminal justice system is after 8 years of this Prime Minister. And now he's appointed a radical justice minister who says that crime is all in Canadians' heads. It's their imaginations that have gone wild. But the data proves otherwise. It turns out that Canadians are right, Conservatives are right, and a common sense Conservative government will fix the mess they made, fix what's broken with jail and not bail. Now let's bring it home.
I want to ask him about a statement he gave to journalists where he said, quote, "We'll pass it this afternoon. In fact, call the minister. Tell him I'm happy to bring back Parliament today. We'll pass bail reform by midnight." Was the leader of the opposition being honest when he made that statement?
Yes. In fact, I would have undone the Liberal bail law C-75 the day it was passed 6 years ago. Now, this minister, not only did he go on vacation before addressing bail, he then went on a radio station. He thought that no one would find out about this. And he claimed that we were holding up the reversal of Liberal bail policy. In fact, he was on vacation and he had allowed Parliament to rise without bail reform occurring in the first place. And let's not forget that what little good this bill does is just undoing the damage that his party already did. And finally, I would ask the minister to stand in his place and apologize to Canadians for trying to gaslight them and tell them that rising crime was just a, quote, perception issue. I have just given him all of the data published by his own government, which shows that violent crime has raged out of control after 8 years of this Prime Minister. These are data points, these are facts. Will he admit it and apologize for gaslighting Canadians?
The leader of the Conservative opposition really doesn't respect Quebec's voters. When he talks about Quebec, he speaks in French. When he speaks in English, he speaks about Canada. And listen, it's important to distinguish facts from fiction. And when we talk about the carbon tax, which doesn't apply in Quebec, well, you know, that's an important distinction. Same thing with Hunter. So my question to the leader is the following. Can he distinguish fact from fiction? The Bloc now wants me to speak about them in English. That's very bizarre. But let's talk about facts. It's true that the Bloc supported the ban on hunting rifles. It was at committee. The members of the Justice Committee received the list of 300 pages of hunting weapons, which would be banned by the Liberals. And their member said, "This is excellent. We've been waiting for this for years. We've been waiting for this ban for years." And now the leader of the Bloc Quebecois, or maybe he forgot what his party did. And when it comes to the carbon tax, yes, the second carbon tax applies in Quebec. Yes, it applies in Quebec. We had a motion in the House of Commons, and we wanted to cancel that. The Bloc voted in favor of keeping that second carbon tax. And the honourable member said that they want to radically increase it. I will defend taxpayers in Quebec and not add to the federal tax burden.
You know, we have a bill before us today that has support of all the premiers and broad support in the law enforcement community, and which incorporated many of the things that the Justice Committee studied and recommended in the hearings that we conducted. And so, since we've already had hearings, we have broad support from the premiers, and we appear to have at least some level of support from all the parties. I'm back to the original question to the Leader of the Opposition. Is he serious about passing this, even if it's not the perfect bill for him? But can we get this done, get this passed expeditiously? Is he serious about this or not?
We're the only party that has been serious for the last 8 years about this. That member, along with the NDP, has voted to release repeat violent criminals into his community. He has helped unleash a crime wave on Vancouver Island he has brought about his policies. Both NDP and Liberal have brought about tent cities, chaos, drug overdoses, and his only solution has been to ban the hunting rifles of the decent, hardworking, law-abiding people who live on Vancouver Island. Mr. Speaker, the NDP is totally out of touch. Common sense Conservatives will stand up against crime and for hunters on Vancouver Island.